Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm starting a new page in the Outlander coloring book, this one here, and I'm using Neocolors 2 to work on the base coat as well as most of the shading. And I'm gonna tell you what I plan for this page, what is the focal point, where my lights come from, how I choose my colors, and how excited I am for season 5 of Outlander to begin today. So enjoy! Welcome to the next page. If you watched the last video where I finished the portrait of Gelis Duncan in her workshop, it feels like we're now zooming in onto her work table, and there's just an array of plants and tools and things, all the things here to color today. And the story for this bit is Gelis was knowledgeable about the local plants and their medicinal uses. Though she suggested a few usages I thought questionable, to say the least. I thought it very unlikely, for instance, that Bloodwort would be effective in making warts grow on a rival's nose, and I strongly doubted whether wood Betony was useful in transforming toads into pigeons. She made these explanations with a mischievous glance that suggested she was testing my own knowledge, or perhaps the local suspicion of witchcraft. So that is the story. If you've seen the show, that particular sentence, transforming something from toads into pigeons, happened in the gardens of Lear, not in her workspace, in her house. But yeah, I liked it both ways, in the book and in the show. By the way, fun fact, today is Monday that I'm filming, and season 5 of Outlander started. So when I'm done working today, I'm gonna watch the first episode of the new season, followed by a couple of podcasts that I very much like for the Outlander world, and I'm so looking forward to it. I have a big smile on my face because yay, Droughtlander is over. But before I can watch, I definitely have to work and put down some color on this page. And for today, can you see it? Yeah, there's a little hint here. I chose my Neocolor 2s for the underpainting. I'm planning to have a couple of bits pop out, so I'm thinking those flower buds here as well as those, have them be the focal point color-wise, so they will be way more intense, and things around it will be maybe a little more desaturated or blurry or not as bright and finished when it comes to the way I color. But I wanted to have a very quick underpainting done with watercolory things, supplies, so I chose the Neocolors because I have a whole array of colors at my disposal, and they are either bright or not, so I can choose to have some of the maybe a little more muted colors for those greens here, and have the 3 different kinds of flower buds here maybe pop out a little more. I mean, these would work perfectly with a hot pink, something like that. Maybe for the violets, definitely I'm gonna use, well, the indigo blue, little violet colors, little yellow maybe, and then have a warm yellow for these flower buds, or something like this orange here, and maybe have these ones here be white, and those ones maybe also, or a light gray, a light blue, something like that. That's the plan, and I'm going to start with now I gotta decide background or foreground, because this is the table. Underneath, in the last picture, I had it colored in a very dark brown. And I think I will do that too this time, but just keep it and have it be the same table. A light gray for the pestle and mortar, maybe a little more of a lighter brown for this cutting board here, and grays for the scissors, because metal, and maybe like a yellow ochre or very light color for the string. Hold on, I just saw something here. This is fabric, and this is the wood, so this is the table. So I can go, hold on, now I gotta rethink, because cloth in that time was kind of beige colored, something like this maybe. Funny enough, it's called beige. So maybe I should use the beige for the cloth. Have the dark table and also a dark cutting board, just to have some color pop and some contrast. And keep the same idea that I had for all the flowers. I think that's a good idea. So I'm gonna start with the beige, because it's a very light color and I can cover anything up with the greens and such, should I, well, go over pieces like here, for example, all those tiny bits and pieces. It almost looks like rosemary, so maybe I'm just gonna color it as rosemary, but there's tiny little bits and pieces here, so that is way more difficult or fiddly to color in a timely fashion with a dark color. But now that I know this is cloth, thank God I looked or I double checked all of the items on my page here. But since I did that, I can now make it the right color. I mean, a brown cloth could have been working as well, but it's not as common, I guess, at least back in the day. That would be my assumption. So I'm just going around the whole page now and color in those bits. Since you will only watch this video a couple of days after I filmed this, you would have had the chance by now to have watched the first episode of the new season. So I'm curious, did you watch it? And what do you think? Did you like it? Maybe not. Were there parts that you, well, were surprised by? Let me know in the comments if you were watching and what you thought, because I'm curious. And well, it's the time of year where we can talk Outlander again. It's been so long. So I do have quite a small brush here already, but some of these bits are very tiny, so I just gotta concentrate, take my time, and color in my cloth. Might be a little tedious to watch me go around the whole page and just go around coloring everything in a solid layer of beige. So let's do something that I kind of like to do in these cases, but then again not really, because it takes away from the experience of having this colored real time and see how much time and work goes into a page like that. But if you check out my blog post that always accompanies one of these videos, like every single video on Beyond the Lines, you can find out how long it actually took me to color that particular step. So you could do some math then, because you're all very, very smart people, and see how long this video is. Check my blog post on what I mentioned as total working time, and then you can find out how long it took me to have the background colored, because I'm gonna go to time lapse now and meet you back in with a real time footage once I do have the cloth down, because this is just totally repetitive now and, you know, a little tedious to watch, I guess. So see you in a minute, and I'm trying to have some lovely music in there that maybe reminds you of Outlander, because it is, I'm trying to get some Scottish or Scotland inspired music. Let's see if I'm gonna be successful. If not, just imagine it's me being successful, finding something in there. So see you in a minute.
Let's go.
So now that the cloth is colored, I can move on to the next bit, and I think I want to get the table colored, so I'm gonna choose two tones for that, sepia and Van Dyke brown. Both of them are cool shades of brown, or actually sepia is a black, but it is a brownish black. And since I want to keep the color spectrum of my last page as well, it's the same kind of table and the story only goes on pretty much. I'm just gonna mix the two and have a cool dark brown here on the table. This is pretty much the base coat. And in a minute I'm gonna bring in some dark blue to add to the brown and start shading. I'm gonna go over these little circles here. I'm gonna add some white or maybe a light yellow later on with gel pens, so I can disregard them for now and not color around them, which is a nice thing to do with those teeny tiny things on a page. A little more of the brown. And I'm gonna bring in night blue, which is a very dark warm blue and is closest to my favorite color, indigo. There's a indigo crayon in the set, but it's way more purplish. So I chose the night blue, and the indigo blue is a little too purple for me, so I didn't choose the crayon with the name of my favorite shading color, but the crayon that is actually closest to the sort of indigo I like. And I tend to like the bluish tint a little more, not so much the purple tint. I mean, don't get me wrong, I very much like the purple blue crayon too, but not for this particular part here. It would maybe be a perfect shading color for some of the flowers, but not the dark brown table so much. So I'm gonna add a little more Van Dyke, just pure Van Dyke, no mixing of colors at this point. I'm just gonna pick it up with my brush and color the edge here, just give it a little more of a lighter brown tint. Blend that towards the top, and then I'm going to use my sepia, also pure sepia, no mixing, no nothing. Again, just gonna pick it up and bring that in from the top to have a darker shadow here. Because the cloth casts a shadow on the table. Now I haven't chosen a light source yet. I think I'm gonna maybe have it come from the upper right hand side, because I think that would fit well. But no matter where the light comes from, it the tablecloth would cast a shadow, so I'm good to go for that part. There we go. Now I gotta decide. I think that's the point where I definitely have to think about where my light comes from, and I do like the idea of the upper right hand side, so this is how I'm going to color the rest. So for example, there will be a shadow on this lower left hand side here. Colors will maybe be a little lighter towards the right than the left. Is it rosemary? I don't know, because actually this looks like rosemary a little more than that. So whatever this plant is will cast a shadow onto this section, and so on. I mean, this is rather a flat surface, not a lot of shadow casting happening, and I don't want to have a harsh shadow, say, underneath these flowers here. Maybe a subtle one later on, but I'm gonna keep this actually quite plain, I think. At least that's the plan for now. So now I want to move on to the cutting board. And I had said earlier I wanted something of a lighter brown. I'm liking the idea of ochre and olive brown mixed with maybe a tiny little bit of the raw umber. So I'm gonna start with ochre and olive brown. I'm gonna turn my page because, as I always say, make it most comfortable for your hand when you're coloring or painting for a longer period of time, because it will strain your wrists and all the muscles and things in there. So make sure that you have a comfortable position with your hand when you're coloring. And that means that you've got to turn your page quite often, I guess. At least I do. It's gonna be the color of this part is gonna be nasty and fiddly, but I'm gonna go ahead and color it in. Being as precise as I can be, but not beating myself up if I have a little bit of a white spot or go over some of the planned bits here, because I guess I'm gonna extend some of the greens around those little leaves and just make it fit in the end. Have the illusion that everything's colored perfectly, but it's actually quite squiggly here, so just some dots of my ochre are good enough for me, and I'm gonna fill in the rest with a little bit of green. Well, I guess I'm gonna use green because it's a plant, and I guess it will have a green shade, maybe a little of a grayish green, like an earthy green, a little more on the desaturated part of the spectrum. Guess that would be a very good contrast to the very bright and warm ochre here, but that's only gonna happen later. As you can see, I'm working in my quote-unquote usual way here, so starting with the background and working my way up to the foreground. This is the way I usually work, though I did work the other way around on the last page. But that was due to the choice of supplies. This is quite straining on the eyes, trying to find all the spots where I need to put my ochre down. Thank God it's not a huge section. It almost feels like one of these books like Where's Waldo? Where to color. So I'm very happy that this section is only medium sized and not too much of that. These bigger sections here are rather quickly colored because you can just squiggle your brush back and forth and get a lot of coverage done in one go pretty much. This is very nice, makes for a rather quick coloring process. Now on to these bits here. And back to the Where's Waldo kind of coloring down here. I missed a couple of spots here. Jeez. It's quite a lot of them. Okay, where's what? Guess this is what this is. This is. The rest is just gonna be a lot of green, I guess. So now I'm going to bring in the what's it called? Olive brown. I'm gonna start bringing this in kind of as a second layer, but also as a shading color almost. So I'm not being very precise here with where I put how much of that color. I kind of want the board to look used and uneven. And I might even add another shading color in a minute. Maybe I'm gonna weather that board or have it look stained from cutting all of those plants, maybe. That could be something. So I'm already thinking about what kind of color I'm gonna bring in to well, whether that board should be maybe a darker color, greenish brown. I think the raw umber is a really good choice, the one that I have mentioned when picking the two main colors here for this board. I think that would be really good because it has a greenish tint and it's rather dark. So I'm just gonna go for it. A little bit with the illustration of the wood grain. Just darken up those spots that are drawn in, and then maybe add a little bit here and there depending on what I think the board needs. You can see I'm really using a very light touch, very squiggly, very fast, not being too precise. Maybe shade a bit here between those flower buds, also here between those leaves. So I guess they cast shadow on the board, or there's like staining happening because things have been cut before on this board. At least that's what I think, so I'm gonna make it that way. Sorry, that was my tummy. Gurgle, gurgle. I guess it's lunchtime soon. Though I just had a lovely vegetable and fruit juice this morning. But maybe my tummy wants a little more today. So I guess after this video is done, I'm gonna go food shopping. So I need just a little more. Some of the bits here. And a smidge down here. Yep, that's more like it. So that's the board. I gotta check the watch. Okay, we're still good. So before I start with all the plants, I'm gonna get the scissors and the pestle and mortar out of the way, because then I can decide on what colors. I mean, I know what kind of colors I want for the flowers. But the kind of greens that I'm going to use is the next big question. So I will decide that once I have the scissors, the mortar, and all the flowers in, like the flower buds, the blossoms. For the scissors, I think they're metal and I think they're quite dark, so let's go for a Payne's Gray. It has a coolish bluish tint, which is a very nice contrast to the cutting board, to the warm yellow ochre. So let's see. So that would be Payne's Gray. Yeah. Haha, I love that my tins are sorted perfectly with my swatches so that I can just find things. Using a second layer of the Payne's Gray, but a little less water to go on top and shade my scissors. And I'm gonna use a little bit of that night blue brown mixture with the Payne's gray to color the lower bit here with the shears. There we go. For the pestle and mortar, I want a little bit of a lighter tone, so I'm taking the gray. And I will disregard the pattern here because I'm gonna get back to that with gel pens in the end. So I'm just going to put down a layer of the light gray first, going around the leaves. Last little bit of the light gray, and then I'm using the Payne's gray that I do already have on my palette and start shading. So since the light comes from the upper left hand side, this bit here would be very dark. And the lower we get into the bowl, the darker it is towards the left hand side, because the light is coming in and it will be a little lighter here on the rim, but down here it's gonna be a little bit darker. Same goes for the peso. Blending this out towards the top, so it's darker on the bottom, a little lighter towards the top where the light hits. And on this part, the upper wider part of the pencil casts a shadow on this lower bit here, hence there's gonna be a little bit of a darker shade of gray there. Now moving on to the left hand side of the bowl, there's a shadow here. And it feathers out towards the right. And that's that already. I'm gonna mix a little bit of Payne's Gray with the Night Blue. I'm gonna add a little more here on the very darks. Clean up my brush and move the pigment upwards a bit. And the same here on the pencil, just very tiny little bit of that blue gray mixture to bring things together. There you have it. Alright, now I gotta clean my palette because I'm moving towards colors that are not brown or gray or blue, and I don't want them to mix with the shades that I had, like the colors that I had used. So it's always good to clean up your palette. And then let me look at the clock. Ooh, I'm I'm really doing well time-wise today. This is the difference between these different kinds of pages in the book. Some of them are really, really slow because there's so much tiny little detail. And then there's some you can work on a little faster because, well, they have a different kind of line work. They're a little bigger. It's maybe more of a scene like this one instead of one with people and lots of detail and such. And of course it's also because of different kinds of media that I can use or that fit well with the page. So I'm gonna move on to the blossoms, all the different kinds of blossoms here. And I'm going to choose this one first. And I want a cool shade, but I don't want the pinks because I want to keep them for these colors here. So I'm thinking maybe the salmon would be something that would work well. So let's just go for it. Maybe the apricot. No, let's go for the salmon. There we go. Come on, get out of the tin. So I'm gonna start with that. I'm absolutely gonna disregard the leafy bits of the flowers for now, or of the plants. This is a juicy brush. I just switched up my brush from the other one that is pretty much the same size, but it has been in my studio longer, so it's actually way more worn and torn, and the bristles get a little wonky. They don't keep a fine tip point anymore like this brush here. So I thought I'd switch it out for those flowers, but this one's also way more juicy, so I gotta be careful not to have too much of a water blob like here, where things could run or smudge. So back here. And one here. And another one here. Whoop. Base coating is really fast on these flowers here. I don't know what they're called. If you know, please tell me in the comment section. Then I'm going to wait for a second and start shading these flowers right away, and I'm going to use a warm shade for that, which is Vermilion. It's a warm red, but also kind of salmon color-ish, so it has a little bit of orange or apricot in it. And I think that would be a nice color for shading, just using very little of that, because I don't want it to be too dark, and I'm even mixing it a tiny little bit with the salmon color on my palette. Just want a little bit of shading or oomph. On these bits here. And I'm just squiggling in a little bit of that color. Like I said, mixing the vermilion with the salmon. And a little bit here, that final bit. So I'm already starting shading and putting in quote-unquote detail on these flowers that are not supposed to be the focal point. So I'm working background to foreground as I most often do, but I'm not layering as much. I'm shading right away. That is maybe a little bit different from what I do most of the time. On to the next flower. Let's go with the ones down here. I want to have those white little bits here. They're supposed to be white, I think. So I need a contrasting color that doesn't take away from these three flowers, because they are going to be the bright ones, the focal point, where I'm also going to bring in some different medium later on. At least that is the plan. Let me see. I think I'm gonna go with either the periwinkle blue or the sky blue. Let me quickly think, because I do have the violets here, and they do have yellow on the bottom and dark purple on top. Probably I'm gonna have them a little more. That's the question now. Am I gonna go for warm colors on the violets or for cool ones? I think I'm gonna go a little more towards the cool colors. So instead of say the indigo, use the royal blue with as a shadow, or a combination of these two, and have the periwinkle. Am I gonna go cold or warm? Because the respective other color for these tiny flowers here would be either the sky blue or the periwinkle, or I could even go with a light cobalt blue. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the light cobalt blue and shade with the sky blue. That's the plan. So let's go for light cobalt blue and then the sky blue. Yep, that's the correct crayon. The light cobalt blue is, as it says in its name, really light. So it's just a hint of light blue. But I'm gonna put on these flowers. And I'm disregarding those little circly bits again, because I'm gonna use gel pens on them. Pretty much just giving those petals a solid layer of the light cobalt blue. can hardly see it even in real life. I think you won't be able to see any color here on camera, but trust me, it has a very light blue tint. I'm going to bring in the sky blue. Add just a tiny bit here on the inner parts of the flowers, like on the petals. Oh, there's some back here. They just get the sky blue treatment. Adding a little more of the sky blue for the flower. It's not the stem, it's not the bud. I'm missing the word, but for these tiny little center pieces. There we go. Now I can move on to the next bit, and that would be that yellow flower. So I'm now going right to left. For the yellow flower, I want a warm shade, and I had said I'd like the orange here. And I think that's what I'm gonna use. So let's see, yeah, that's the orange. And then I'm going to use the flame red and the saffron maybe for shading. So flame red and saffron. Are you saffron? Yep, you are. And I'm gonna start with the orange. Pick that up with my brush. And then also this petal here, because that definitely belongs to those flowers. And then I'm moving on to the orange. And gonna clean my brush and blend that out towards the edges. I'm doing the same with the other flower. Gotta work quite fast here to be able to move the pigment. Then I'm gonna go in with the saffron and add some of the details here, or the darkest shadows, depending on what part of the flower I'm coloring. Like so. And same for the other one here. So there's dark, 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 dark. Also here. And just a bit down here. There we go. Orange flowers done. Now I can move on to the violets, and I want to start with the yellow bit, which is going to be, I think I want the normal yellow. Starting with that, picking up the pigment and adding it towards the lower part. Cleaning up my brush and then blending it just with a little bit of a damp brush here. I want a tiny bit of white on the lowest edge of the violet. And then I will go in with the periwinkle, the royal blue. Where is it? Nope, that should be royal, yes. And the indigo. Quite a lot of crayons here on my desk. Excuse me. And I'm starting with periwinkle. Flower number 1. Flower number 2, then on to the royal blue. And with a damp brush, blending these together. Back to the royal blue and then onto the other flower. And again, cleaning out my brush and just with a damp brush blending the two together. And then, last but not least, the indigo. Et voila. I need the inner part. I'm just going to mix the royal blue and the indigo together for these little bits here. And then on to the last 3 flower buds. Is that one? Oh, there's, what are you? You are not visible anywhere else on the, excuse me, on the sheet. So I'm just gonna make you light blue. It's gonna be one of these. Just decided, so just gonna go in with the light cobalt blue and the sky blue. Just make it part of these flowers. Done. Now, finally, on to the last 3 bits for today, and I want a hot purple pink. I'm using the purple, and I need a shading color. The carmine isn't really that different, but I'm gonna try it. Let's see if I can pull it off. That's carmine. Okay, so a little bit of the hot pink, which is called purple in this particular set of colors. And I'm gonna start with the pink shade. aka purple. I'm not gonna care about these white dots here. Again, they are gonna be colored with gel pen. So I'm just taking care of the flowers themselves, all the different kinds of petals and bits and pieces here. Just base coating them. And then I'm using the carmine start shading. So I want a little bit of a richer tone here towards the lower part of the flower, but also here in these sort of tubes. And then I will clean up my brush and try to blend these two layers together. It's a little more difficult with purples and reds because they really stain the paper fast, and then you can't really move the pigment around. Same with this one here. That's not too bad, but I wanted a little bit of a darker, rich tone. I mean, I will use Inktense on these flowers here, on the blossoms on these three, because I had said earlier I'm planning to have another medium used, so I think I'm just gonna give it a little more of the carmine, and then I'm gonna end the video for today and see you back next week with the next bit of this page. This was rather a fast one so far, so lots and lots of bits colored and shaded, where I'm very likely won't add any more detail. I kind of like it. I like working a little more loose and a little faster, especially after the last page, which was more on the slower part of the spectrum. So that would be part one of, and now the question is, how am I gonna call this page, or what am I gonna call this page? What will the video be named? Where's my cap? Where did I put it? Sheesh. Did I drop it? Oh no, haha, it's on my drawer. So this is the first part of what did the story say? Let's call it Bloodwort and Betony, wood Betony. Let's call it that. So this is the name for this sub-series, for this particular page here. I hope you enjoyed watching along. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I will see you next week with the next part of this page. I'm going to work on all the greens here, all the leaves and such, and probably the topic will be, or I'm going to talk about how I'm choosing different greens to not have it look too busy but also not too boring. So we're gonna take care of that next week. Until then, have a good one, do some coloring, and if you color this page or have colored it, post it to Instagram and tag me so I can see, because I'm very curious and I would love to see your artwork. Take good care guys, have fun, and I'm gonna see you very, very soon. Bye.